A couple announcements. We have some index cards, and we're going to have a little group activity at the end of tomorrow, what's called a found poem. So Charlotte's got index cards, and the idea is just to write a few words or a line or some thought about what's special about Prince William Sound, what's on your mind, and we'll sort of compile them all into a poem slash reading at the end of tomorrow. Also, we really encourage everybody to become members of Prince William Sound Stewardship Foundation. It's only $25, but membership gives us strength in numbers when we're advocating for various causes, and also gets you access to early signups for a lot of our volunteer trips. Also, we have lots of sponsors, lots of people that have helped out, including the Glacier Jet Ski Tour, Stan Stephen Cruises, Discovery Voyages, Midnight Sun Brewing, Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council, Drifters Fitch. The list goes on and on for people who support the foundation and this event. Lastly, David Goldstein wanted me to mention that on June 2nd, the Anchorage Planning and Zoning Commission is having a hearing on a cell phone tower in Portage Valley, which right now, as a lot of you know, there is no cell service in Portage Valley or Bear Valley, and this will improve that and improve the safety in that zone. So he wanted me to mention that. So next up, we have Interpreting Terrestrial Wildlife with Lily G. She's the Director of Education for the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. So welcome, Lily.
I'm also not tall enough for this microphone. Here we go. All right, I'm not interested in that slide roulette game, so I brought my notes up here with me. But I very much admire it. My name is Lily. I work at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center in Portage, which I know that a lot of you drove by on your way here today. So if you haven't been to visit us yet, consider this your invitation to stop on by, and we'll look forward to seeing you there over our summer season. I'll start with a little introduction of myself and my facility, and then move into the bulk of my presentation. I'm going to be talking about terrestrial wildlife today and the ways that we talk about them using skills from my learned experiences at AWCC. So before I start talking about wildlife, I think it's important to know the lens that I view wildlife through. Surely there are lots of ways that people in this room interact with wildlife and think of wildlife, so knowing where I come from might help put it a little bit into context for you. So first of all, I am an Alaskan transplant. I moved here at 18 years old to attend UAF, and like so many people experience, the wonder of Alaska kind of sucked me in, and I have been here and enjoying Alaskan wilderness and wildlife more or less since then. I've spent a lot of my time in Alaska in Fairbanks, and now mostly in Girdwood and working in Portage. I am originally from Southern California, so I've adapted to a cold weather climate. I'm the first in my family to receive a 4-year college degree and pursue a career like I have now. And my family is largely Croatian in heritage, and that's why you'll see on my last slide my ridiculous last name is there. So that's me. That's where I come from. Now, the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, or AWCC as we fondly call ourselves, is a not-for-profit organization. We are located on about 200 acres in Portage, and we are a wildlife sanctuary dedicated to preserving Alaska's wildlife through conservation, education, research, and quality animal care. We have a lot of animals that live with us at our facility. A lot of them are there because they were orphaned or injured and have permanent placement at our facility. We also have animals that are part of reintroduction programs, not that occur in Prince William Sound, so I'll talk about that another day. We also work on a number of conservation programs, including endangered cook inlet beluga whale monitoring and rufous hummingbird banding. In my role as the Director of Education, I definitely have many hats in a small not-for-profit organization. And so I oversee all of our interpretive programming, day-to-day tours and encounters, our educational programming for school-age kids, as well as the research collaborations. So now into the meat and potatoes of my presentation here. I have slides that are going to touch on 4 fairly common terrestrial species here in Prince William Sound. And perhaps there will be some new fun facts for you to glean from that. And perhaps you are already a wildlife expert, and maybe in that case, it will reinforce something you've heard before. And then following that, I'm going to dive into some resources for ways to talk about animals that will leave you having a lasting impact, and how to gauge your success in meeting your goals in talking to people about wildlife. Prince William Sound is full of immense biodiversity. There's at least a dozen marine mammals, tons of fishes, birds, invertebrates on land, in the sky, underwater. Over 381 species of plants have been documented on the shores of Prince William Sound, and there's 30 or so terrestrial mammals. So I'm just going to give you examples from 4 of them that are common here. And also I leaned on my experience a little bit, so I'm focusing mostly on animals that live with us at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. And I was told there was a clicker up here, and I didn't look for it before I started talking. Here it is. So first of all, moose. Moose are gigantic, and in Alaska especially, really large. Adult moose can weigh 800 to 1,600 pounds and stand 6 feet tall at the shoulders. Males are identifiable for their palmate antlers, which differ from other ungulate antlers. They've got that long, widespread palm with multiple tines coming off of it, as opposed to other deer-like creatures who have maybe a single beam or a split beam and tines coming off of that. In moose, as with most deer-like animals, only the males grow antlers, and antlers grow and shed every year. That giant structure falls right on off of their head. I find that people visiting me have a lot of questions about antler growth and how it happens. So I have a little bit more for you on that. Antlers grow quite large in moose. On average, large mature bull set in this area even can weigh 45 to 50 pounds, although they can exceed 60 pounds in some areas for a very successful individual. And they can span 60 to 80 inches. The largest antlers typically grown on moose between 8 to 12 years old, and the size of antlers can vary. Typically, they get larger with age through an individual's prime, but it can vary based on food availability, climate, and their genetics. The life expectancy for moose is only about 16 years on the higher end. They're short-lived species, and I find that that fun fact tends to break people's hearts. But the common causes of death for them are predation, severe winter conditions that can lead to reduced food availability, and the quantity and quality of their available habitat. Moose rely very much on shrubby habitats. So in Alaska, we have a lot of that. I'm talking about places where willow and alder grow abundantly. In the summertime, they eat the leaves and fresh flowers, and in the wintertime, they'll chew on the fresh-grown twigs and bark. In several areas in the state where there has previously been tundra, we're seeing more shrubby plants move into those areas. And so it's possible that moose habitat will be expanding into places where it wasn't previously. Now, specific to this area, here's a really fun moose fact. Moose, although native to this area, most of the moose that are around Prince William Sound have lineages from individuals that were introduced here. From where? Kenai, the Mat-Su Valley, and even Anchorage area. They were introduced here in the mid-1950s, and the populations that were introduced here have boomed since then. So while there are still healthy populations of moose that are native to this area, most of them have lineages from moose maybe a little closer to where I live. Okay. Yes. Black bears. In Alaska, we have 3 species of bears. Who knows all 3? Somebody in this room does. Most people in this room do. Just shout them out for me. Black bear and white bear. Is that what I heard? Yeah. We've got black bears, brown bears, and polar bears, but in this area, there are just 2 species, black bears and brown bears. And black bears are one of the most abundant and widely distributed bears in North America. There are thought to be about 100,000 individuals in Alaska, although they're extremely hard to count. They're pretty elusive. Oftentimes, we'll be out on trails, enjoying our special variety of outdoor adventures and see sign of bears, maybe a track, maybe some scat, maybe a scrape mark on a tree. But much less often, we see the actual bears, even though we know they're there. Their elusiveness makes them hard to count, and so our estimates are rough, but still pretty educated, about 100,000 individuals. Our bears have colors in their common names, which can be a little bit misleading. Is color an indicator of what species you're looking at? Not really. Black bears and brown bears can both range in color greatly. Black bears can be black, brown, cinnamon color, which glows red in the sunlight. And although it would be very surprising to see in this area, they can be white and even have a glacier blue color phase. So since we can't really rely on their color, what are some other ways you can tell which species of bear you're looking at? In this lower photo, you can see that that bear who's kind of looking forward, the one not climbing a tree, has a pretty angular face. You could draw almost a straight line from the top of his forehead to the tip of his nose. The highest point on him, if his head is up, maybe his head, but otherwise his rump. There's not a very well distinguished shoulder hump on black bears in comparison to brown bears. They also have short, curved claws, although I don't recommend getting close enough to spot that unique adaptation. They're relatively small in size, maybe only 29 inches at the shoulder, and weigh between 180 to maybe a little over 200 pounds. And in the spring, if you've seen a bigger black bear than that, I believe you. They have an important job in the summertime. They're spending most all of their energy looking for food and eating it. They eat a lot of food. They're omnivores and they're generalists, which means they eat a wide variety of both meats and vegetations. And black bears in particular tend to have a higher portion of vegetation in their diet compared to meat protein sources. They're working hard because they're going to gain about 20% of their own body weight through our luscious summer season in order to prepare for a long winter sleep. They're storing enough energy in their bodies to make it through our coldest months without eating anything else, drinking water, or even peeing or defecating. They're just going to keep it all inside. And females are going to store enough energy to gestate cubs through the winter time. Black bears have a very unique reproductive cycle. Like a lot of animals in Alaska, they mate during the summer and fall season, but exhibit delayed implantation. So a to-be mom black bear won't have their little to-be cub implant in their uterine wall until they go to sleep in the wintertime. And that only happens if they've onboarded enough food to grow successful cubs. Their gestation is about 56 days, although it's also hard to study because most of this is happening when they're in a den, and we don't get to look in those very often. We think that they're mostly born in late January and early February, but it's hard to say. So to keep things simple, we just pretend that they're all born January 1st. Which means you have something new to celebrate. When you ring in 2026, you can say Happy New Year and Happy Birthday to all of the brown bears and black bears in Alaska. The winter sleep of bears is pretty unique from other mammals who also sleep through the winter time. Their hibernation is a cyclical sleep that's commonly referred to as torpor. And one of the biggest drivers of the length of this sleep, which can be pretty variable in time, is food availability. When they emerge in the spring, one of their first food sources will be what remains of roots and plant bases that have senesced for the winter. And sedges, which are a grass-like plant that stores nutrients in its leaves throughout the winter season. Next up, okay, hold on. There we go. Thank you. Brown bears. Some of what I shared for black bears is applicable here too. Lots of people come to Alaska hoping to see an iconic brown bear. We have an estimated 35,000 of them in Alaska in comparison to the 100,000 black bears. Again, these are rough estimates due to their elusive nature, and even with that difference in population size, both of these bear species are listed as least concern currently by the IUCN. There are several common names for brown bears that lead guests to confusion, and a lot of those names are all referring to the same species. So you may have folks coming to visit who know what a Kodiak brown bear is, or a coastal brown bear, or most commonly a grizzly bear. All of these are considered to be brown bears, but go by different common names in different regions of the state and regions of the country where brown bears also occur. Brown bears are quite a bit larger than black bears. They range in size from 500 pounds to about 1,500 pounds, although I wouldn't expect to see one quite that large here. Larger bears are iconically known to be in Kodiak, Alaska, but a coastal brown bear that we might have here, a big individual, probably could weigh 1,000 pounds. Brown bears are smaller towards the interior of the state, larger towards the coast, and there are a few notable populations where they grow exceptionally large. A lot of the difference in size is attributed to the food that's available to them and how long it's available to them. So bears who live in areas where they have an abundance of salmon available to eat and long growing seasons tend to grow larger than bears further in the interior who are eating salmon that have swum hundreds of miles to get to where they are, don't have as much fat on them and are much lower in number. Despite their large size, when they're born, they may only weigh 1 to 2 pounds. They are completely dependent on their mother, and they stay with their mom in the den until they typically emerge in May, weighing close to 15 pounds. In Alaska, baby bears stay with their mom for about 3 years, which in the lower 48 is typically just 2. Before babies disperse, they'll oftentimes spend their last summer season, or at least part of it, with any siblings they may have before they fully disperse onto their own. Both black bears and brown bears are largely solitary. They come together to mate, and moms and calves are seen together for 3 years, but other than that, they pretty much like to be on their own. Bears also have an extremely strong sense of smell, more strong than I really can imagine. A recent study suggested that a bear's sense of smell is so incredibly good that they can smell electricity. Take a moment and think to yourself what electricity might smell like to you. I suppose it's for the bears to know. But this is beneficial for us. If you use any kind of electric bear deterrent, whether it's an electric fence or an unwelcome mat around campgrounds, likely a bear in your area does not need to test that to know that they do not want to pass that barrier, especially if they've tested it once before. So I think that that is kind of bears' unique superpower there. Okay, we'll try again for next slide. No. Mountain goats. They're also pretty abundant in this area. In the state, we have a pretty wide-ranging estimate, somewhere between 24 and 25, 24 and 34,000 individuals. And most of those individuals are around Prince William Sound and especially Cordova. Their population is very subject to large fluctuations based on winter weather conditions. A particularly harsh winter could cause a decline in their populations that last for a while, and harvest rates, especially if there's extra harvest of females. And despite some things that can be complicated about managing them, they're also considered of least concern at this time. Their a little bit challenging to identify for some in this area. I understand we don't really see sheep, so that's a helpful clue is in context to where you are. Their horns stick straight out of the top of their head and are slightly curved, and females and male horns look really similar. Males tend to be a little bit broader and females a little narrower. I've got both on that slide so you can maybe get a little bit of the difference there. And then goats have shaggy hair that makes a square. This is a fun little word game that a coworker actually shared with me. I find that commonly people confuse sheep and goats. And if your folks are driving to Whittier from the Anchorage airport, there's a fair chance that they see sheep on their way to you. And so that can cause some confusion. Sheep, though, have pretty short hair. And so from a distance look sheep shaped, like goats and sheep maybe have a similar shape, but goats have long, shaggy hair. So from a distance, they look more like little rectangles on the cliff sides. They also have generally one kid a year, and their gestation is 180 days. But it takes them a long time to become sexually mature, typically about 4 years before they reproduce, which sounds maybe young to us, but is twice as long as most other ungulates. And so when it takes you a long time to become sexually mature as a species, it takes you longer to recover from population's decline. So that's a possible factor to consider when thinking about the conservation of goats. Their diets are herbivorous. They eat mostly low-growing plants, including sedges and grass-like plants, flowering herbaceous plants, and even some small shrubs. So where are the goats? They live in the mountains, on the cliff sides. These two-toed ungulates use their little feet to scale cliff faces, and due to where they live, they're also extremely hard to study. They're one of the least studied large animals in North America, and because of that, there's a lot that we don't know about them. But in context to Alaska, there's a lot we don't know about a lot of things that live here because they're hard to access. And I find that people are surprised when maybe we don't know something that would seem relatively basic about an animal in the lower 48, but would be hard to determine here. As guides and individuals who talk about wildlife, we are knowledge holders. We hold a wealth of information in our brains that we share with people during our adventures. So perhaps from these few slides on wildlife of Prince William Sound, you heard a new fun fact that you can share with guests. Perhaps you heard something that you already knew and it brought it back to front of mind and you'll rotate it in. And perhaps you already have a wealth of knowledge on wildlife and know everything that I just shared. Perhaps you know enough about wildlife to lead a program or tour that you lead every day of the week and not have to repeat a fun fact you said once. In the next section, I'm going to talk a little bit about tools for communicating effectively and for a lasting impact, including tools for how to decide what of the wealth of knowledge you have to include as talking points in a program. So there are a few steps that I've outlined for you. And the first is, identifying your audience. And perhaps you've heard to do this before. There are a few ways that we can identify the people we're talking to. Who you're talking to is going to impact what you talk about and the opportunities that you seek out and experiences that you seek out for those groups to have. So you should consider your group's demographics and their abilities. I'm sure that there are a wide variety of adventure leaders in here, and maybe there are some folks who are hopping off of a boat and looking for a chill way to view some wildlife. And perhaps there are some folks who will not be satisfied unless they feel like they were close to death at least once on their Alaskan adventure. And knowing where people are coming from and what type of experience they're looking for will help inform on what to give them to help them feel like they've had a successful visit. We've got to think about what their needs are. Some people are going to come here and be totally prepared for what's outside today. A lot of people are going to come here and not be. And if you're not meeting people's basic needs, then any other higher learning objective, any fun fact you want to convey, any mission that you're trying to progress is not going to be reachable unless people have had access to a restroom. They know where food and water is or when they'll next have access to comforts, and other basic needs are met. Consider their knowledge base. I've noticed in people coming to visit us that it is wildly variable. Some people come here and they did not know what a mountain goat was. And so meeting people where they're at with what they know already while respecting a wealth of knowledge they may also hold is an important thing to keep in mind. Where are your guests on the staircase to stewardship? I'm making an assumption here, but I imagine that when you talk to people who are visiting, that you have a goal in mind. And that is widely variable depending on your personal motivations, perhaps the organization, agency, or business entity that you work for. And at the start of a program, you've got people coming to you, and at the end of the program, you're hoping they're closer to whatever your goal is. So where are they on your staircase of stewardship? I find that a lot of people who come here have not experienced Alaska before. They've not experienced this wildlife before, although they want to. They want to engage in our wildlife. A lot of them are looking for ways to contribute on a continuing basis. And what is most important to people who have not experienced this space, this wildlife, whatever your goal is just for them to enjoy their time here and create ecophilia. If they leave here and they are scared because they weren't comfortable in the rain or anything like that, then they're not likely to engage again in the future. So making sure those experiences are positive goes a long way in your lasting impact. Why? Why are they here? People go on vacation for lots of reasons. Some people are looking for a little bit of rest and relaxation. They're motivated by experiences that are going to be restorative to them. Some people are experience seekers and desire to take photos. Others are facilitators. They've got people visiting, they're just showing around. There are people who are interested in our subject matter as hobbyists or professionals. And there are explorers who are motivated by curiosity. My next slide, I'll just show you briefly. It's specific to my facility, although I imagine that you can make a similar version for your organizations. And this is 5 people I always assume are in my audience. I work for a not-for-profit, so the first 2 are particularly relevant to me. They may not be to you, but I'm always going to assume that folks like these are in my audience and go into any engagement with people knowing that I don't know which of them I'm going to encounter. I don't know what their past experiences or opinions are. Go to the next slide. All right. You're going to decide, now that you know who your audience is, what you want to talk about and create a core message. This could be your area of expertise. This could be the mission of a not-for-profit you work for, the goals of a business you work for, or in government agencies, this may be dictated by state or federal government. So it could be internal or it could be coming to you from whoever employs you. And depending on the type of work that you do, this could range greatly. For me, it's easy to say that a lot of what motivates what I'm talking about is conserving wildlife, but it could be facilitating outdoor recreation, safe and respectful interaction with wild spaces, successful harvest of a natural resource, supporting a prosperous tourism industry, or keeping our beautiful environment in Prince William Sound healthy, clean, and wild for everyone. Your core message should determine how you interpret wildlife. A couple more minutes. I'll wrap it up. So I'm giving you some homework. Here's an exercise for you. Think about what your core message is. Oftentimes, these come to us as a couple of words, like conserving wildlife. Think about it and try drafting it into a complete sentence. Moving forward, that will be your theme. That will be why you talk about what you talk about, and it will help you pull from everything you know and decide what specifically to talk about. We're going to skip forward 4 slides. Yeah. How do you know you've done what you set out to do? they're measuring your success. People, why do we communicate? We communicate for, push that button one more time, behavior change, not just to let people know something cool we already knew. So look at your guest behavior to know if you're meeting your goals. Are they participating, asking questions, making eye contact, engaged? Can you see those moments of aha in their eyes? You can do things like lead reflections and solicit feedback from your guests as well. And keep an eye on what they do on social media because surely they'll be posting about their experience with you. Next slide. My last little piece of advice is, despite having this tool to know and decide what to talk about, don't let that detract from your teachable moments. If you've set out to talk about salmon today, but there's a whale doing something like really cool right over there, talk about the whale. Teachable moments are extremely impactful. And I use this saying and I tell my interns this every year: talk about what you can see and will do. Don't perseverate on the things that you missed out on that trip because you don't want your guests to leave having FOMO that they didn't, in fact, see the aurora when they set out to. And my last slide is just contact information for me. There's the last name I promised you. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks.